docs, when you begin, it's like a Jenga tower of fragility, where initially you're
That's outstanding.
It's like you're a professional grant writer and not a filmmaker.
When I got calls from the media when All We Imagine Is Light, won at Cannes, like, what do you have to say? It's such a great victory for Indian cinema. I said, yes, now don't make this a news cycle. Write about it 5 months later and write about it 8 months later and 10 months later.
Welcome to the THR Roundtable, brought to you by Vedika, Himalayan Spring Water. I'm Anupama Chopra and we're shooting at G5A. Welcome everyone to the THR India Independent Filmmakers Roundtable. I am so excited to be sitting here with all of you, and a part of me is even more excited that this conversation can include the bad guy from Bahubali.
Yeah, so it's like I'm the random guy in the group now.
I've always been a great admirer, Rana, of your disruptive tendencies. So my thesis is that Indian independent cinema is at a tipping point. Thanks in no small measure, Payal, to you and All We Imagine Is Light, to crack the competition for the first time in 30 years and then to win the Grand Prix is just incredible. But I feel we've seen, sparks for the last few years. Shaunak, your film, All That Breathes, won at Cannes, won at Sundance, won an Oscar nomination. Your film, Chaitanya, was the first film in main competition at the Venice Film Festival for the first time, I think, in like 19 years. The Disciple, an amazing film. Rima, you continue to be a force of nature. Director, writer, producer, editor, DOP. Literally picking up an award a few weeks ago, I want to say, at the Busan Film Festival for Village Rockstars 2. And Vic, I think of you as sort of the artist who kind of laid the foundational stone with Udan in 2010. Okay. First film to be selected in official competition at Cannes in 7 years. So all of you have been at the front lines of this flourishing. And I want to begin by just asking you, do you feel, and yes, hurdles are massive and hurdles remain, and we will talk about those, but do you feel that there is that moment where something is going to now move forward? Or am I just being very optimistic?
So who starts with answering?
Anybody.
I think there is a tinge of optimism in that
Henna?
This is a moment, definitely, but just within this table there is such heterogeneity that all of us, I think, would define indie cinema entirely differently because we've had different kinds of... But at the same time, there are some overarching commonalities between us. So I think there's definitely a moment in that a needle has moved in people beginning to show some interest, and there being some sort of cred placed on cinephilia and a certain kind of films, but at the same time it's very vociferous and extremely broken in different kinds of shards.
Are we feeling optimistic? Anyone else?
See, I think the audience have gotten more curious about life itself, and I think independent cinema is the only one that can shed some vision on that light, right? It's cultures that you've never lived in. India is so diverse, and I think each of the films that these filmmakers have made will give you a leaf of culture that's so much your own, but yet so different. I think this is the first, definitely optimistic about how things are moving. They've been moving independently in regional industries much more than at a countrywide level. Whether it's cinema from Malayalam, there's pockets of cinema from Telugu and Kannada that are very, very independent in their nature. Few filmmakers who've broken that independent mainstream type of barrier. So I think we're just waiting for that countrywide moment to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's if I have to see it from a purely creative perspective of like the kind of movies that are being made and not just from the filmmakers on this table, who are all incredible. And I think it's lovely to see that kind of diversity and those voices coming out. And if you look at the festival runs of any of the films that have been done over here, it's fantastic. It's great. But to Rana's point is the fact that yes, I think there is progress being made in the South. There's progress being made in Malayalam cinema, as we all know, and Telugu cinema, and Kannada also. Hindi cinema, no. I mean, the indie industry, as far as I think, in the Hindi cinema world is, I don't want to say dead. I just think that's a really strong word. But if you see where we were pre-pandemic and pre-streamers seeming to be the solution. I think the fact that a Court played in theatres and performed, a Masan performed in theatres, Newton performed in theatres, and I think if you look at the scenario today, it's not happening. I think that it's that little bit of a sort of like chicken and egg catch-22 type of situation where your theatres feel, oh, not enough people come to the theatres because they're always available on the streamers. The streamers are not picking it up because they feel the audience is not going to come there and watch it. So it's kind of like nowhere, and I'm saying specifically for the Hindi industry,
right.
For anything north of Maharashtra, I feel it's a situation that needs thought, it needs fixing, it needs something. It's not a good situation.
You had said this to me, Vic, last year. I don't know if you remember, we spoke at the Himalayan Film Festival, and you had used the word dead. And in fact, you had said that perhaps the sweet spot is genre films. A film like Jigra or a film like Kill, which kind of excites audiences to come back into theatres. But the truth is, sadly, both those films underperformed. I don't know, what's your sense of the landscape now?
I think, no, they underperformed for a whole different reason. I don't think you can put the underperformance to a systemic problem. I think there's a fact that's within the films itself. The bright sparks for me are the fact that when there is muscle put behind a film, there's a chance for that film to work at the box office. If you take Lapata Ladies as an example of the fact that there is Amir's muscle has been put behind that, Kiran being a filmmaker, the film is good, and when the muscle's put behind the film, when a distributor shows confidence in a movie, the people will come and see that movie. It's pretty simple. This is a law that's been there for years. The same, in a sense, applies with Kill. People went in to see it. The same applies to 12th Fail as well. I think, and that's the best example, I think, of a movie within the indie/mainstream space that because, Vinod put all his muscle that he could behind that, along with that, it actually sustained itself in a movie theater to do it. So yes, once you put the muscle behind it, the film has a chance to sort of like go out there and do it. But if you don't, and if distribution doesn't, then you're not allowing a film to stay beyond the first weekend or the first week. How does anybody come in and watch a film? Yeah. So it needs that. And we've been discussing this for so many times about the fact that, what's the solution to distribution over here?
Yeah.
There's wonderful films everywhere. But how are we taking that final step to the audience?
Rana, when we speak of muscle, we're looking at you. But before we go there, Payal, I have to ask, All We Imagine Is Light is going to be distributed in over 40 countries. I read that it's the most widely distributed Indian indie ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is amazing. I mean, that's fantastic. Do you have a sense of how this kind of going out into the world, and you've already had a great festival run, do you imagine it's going to impact on when you start raising money for the next?
I hope so.
Do you have any sense of it? Any conversations?
I mean, the process takes time for everybody to make films. It's not just independent filmmaking. Even if a mainstream filmmaker wants to make a film, it's complicated, and to raise money is always complicated. And you have to think about a lot of things, and whether it's, you want to get the return on your investment or whether it's raising the grants, it's going to take time. So this is the first time that my film is being so widely shown. I've made a film before which didn't get that widely shown. So I can only hope that it will make things a little bit easier going forward.
Rana,
Yes,
a lot of sort of jaws fell open when you picked up All We Imagine Is Light, right? But the truth is you were doing that 20 years ago with Bomlata,
Yes.
which won 2 national awards.
Yeah.
Right?
But that didn't have a theatrical release
It
either.
didn't.
Yes. So it started from there.
It did. But what's your sense of how, as a distributor, you need to be creative to find an audience for this film?
See, one is, it can't take the same route as the regular commercial films are.
Of course.
I think it needs, like globally you have a larger festival circuit that you keep moving across, and there's enough number of times, enough pockets of people know about this film. I think that's something that we need to figure out in India, where, okay, there is one festival in Bombay, one is in Goa, but really they happen at odd times. There's really no sync between them either. If there is a certain time period in the year that I'm say these 3 months, October, November, December, audience are waiting for this cinema. There needs to be a habit in some form created. So I think that's really the effort now. So far we've only done independent stroke mainstream kind of films in Telugu because it was a smaller market to reach. It was one state, okay, now 2 states, but it was easier to communicate there. Also, Payal's film has so much Malayalam in it. When you watch Malayalam cinema, this is almost a mainstream narrative, right? But when you come to Bombay, come across the country, it's pretty hard to define what that is. You don't know what pockets, there is an audience for it, but how do you reach out to those audience and tell them that's in the cinemas? So I think that's something that we still are figuring out, and I think it'll take a journey of a few films, and there will be one film here that will come across and say, all of India will start turning towards it. I think whether it's in the commercial world or the real world, right? Everything takes some time. I believed that about 20 years ago when I came and did Dhammarodham in Bombay, I thought Hindi and Telugu will start doing films very conveniently. But it took some 10-15 years after that for a Bahubali to land up and say, oh, it's actually true that one language film can be watched in other places. So I think you just need to make a consistent effort. And what kind of brought Bahubali here was that big dubbing that Star and others did, where they picked up Telugu, Tamil films and dubbed it in the Hindi languages. So people understood that cinema. So right now I don't even have a place to watch independent cinema. Doesn't matter from which part of the country it is. True. So I think it's a combination of theatrical distribution, marketing and streaming, broadcast, all of it coming together to tell these type of stories. So I think it's a larger ecosystem play that needs to come together. As opposed to here can we fix one thing through distribution? I don't know if that's the case. And also India, we are, compared to the rest of the world and with people, we are heavily underscreened actually. If we assume that there is so much cinema, but we are heavily underscreened with the population and the people. At the same time, the screens that are available are empty most of the year. They're only filled in pockets. So the theatres also need cinema. So they also need different types of people coming. So everybody needs this. The filmmakers need that space. It's just that you need some connecting threads that need to go through. And I think this table and my agenda for the next few years will be that.
To be the connecting thread.
I guess, we're able to do something better. It'll help.
I love that. That's fantastic. Rima, what's been your experience? Tora's husband did go into theatres.
Yes. Actually, this Village Rockstars, Village Rockstars 2 is my 5th film. So earlier with Village Rockstars, first part, and Bulbul Can Sing, it was really good. And suddenly it got a lot of attention. But after pandemic with Tora's husband, my experience was the response was good, positive, but I couldn't market the film properly. So difference between a commercial and a independent film is like, with a commercial film, however it is, like you have a market plan, but with an independent film, I can somehow manage to make the film, but after that what, that is the biggest challenge. And I feel always, because our audience, they are quite curious and open to different kind of cinema. That is the best part, and we are a huge country. So I think we keep talking about it, but in the ground level, how much we are working to build a strong network, our ecosystem will help. If I see that in Northeast also people are interested to watch a Maharashtrian good film, film from Kerala, even Payal's film, anyone's, but how to reach them. So that consistent work is needed, and also like when we are showing the films outside the country, like they have this like subtitle in English and on top Korean subtitle or French. If we can do something like that, like our film subtitling in a different way reach to people, then probably something will happen. Otherwise, it's sometimes now when Payal is doing so well, her film is doing, there is a buzz, and then again, you know, it goes down, and for some time then again buzz. So I think it needs at least, probably it will take some time, 5 years, 10 years, like consistent work. But I'm very much sure that there is audience for this kind of cinema.
Yeah, yeah. Vik, I remember when in that same conversation at the Himalayan Film Festival, you talked about Chaitanya's film, and you said The Disciple is just a masterpiece. And you said that, but it went to Netflix and did not get the showcasing that a film like that deserved. Chaitanya, when you look back, was it just bad timing? Was it just that it was 2020, it's the pandemic, there was, you know, or do the things that kind of worked then, are those still consistent problems?
So I've heard this a few times, that the film could have, you know, done better with better marketing or better promotions and things like that. There are two ways of looking at this problem, you know. One is to say that yes, the audiences don't know how to access these films, or there should be more noise about these films. And the other way to look at it is something that I realized with Indian classical music. When I was researching for The Disciple, people kept saying Indian classical music is dying, that the audiences are dwindling. But somebody told me, actually no, the audiences have only increased for music concerts. And I feel it's kind of the same with independent films, that objectively, I feel there are more people who are aware of these films because they have access to the internet, they have access to even, you know, posts on Instagram, social media. If you think that there was a bigger audience, say 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you're probably then in your head amplifying and magnifying that number, because it was 5,000 nerds in the country who went to film festivals. You know, now you look at the registrations at a festival like Mami, it's gone up like, right, you would know that better than anyone else. So what I was told by the OTT was that, you know, we have to trust the algorithm, that it will reach the people that it has to reach. So they kind of define a ceiling for who are the people to who this film should reach, right? I personally believe that ceiling has only gone up. The other problem we've been talking about is, you know, this dependence on theatrical. Now, why the dependence on theatrical? Two things. One is it's a richer experience, and the other is if it makes money at the box office, the ecosystem becomes much more sustainable. Yeah. But from an audience perspective, what mainly matters is that they get to watch the film, and that they watch the film, it doesn't matter when they watch the film. So in that sense, my choice in the pandemic was quite easy. There was no other option. Theaters were not open, there were no exhibitors, right? So, and Netflix, I'm very grateful that, you know, a Marathi art house film about a classical musician went on Netflix. Every film could be marketed better. Every film could be, you know, promoted better. But so for me, that is the bigger question, that it's a problem of noise now. You know, it's not that independent cinema is not happening or people are not making or that there isn't an audience. There's just too much noise around it, because now there are Instagram reels that people are watching, there are YouTube shorts people are watching, there's international content that people are watching. You know, it's not a binary of art versus entertainment, it's art, entertainment and distraction. And distraction seems to be winning. So new problems, I think, need new solutions, and of course it's a very complex problem to solve. But again, even when I got calls from the media when All We Imagine As Light, you know, won it, like, what do you have to say? It's such a great victory for Indian cinema. I said, yes, now don't make this a news cycle. You know, write about it 5 months later and write about it 8 months later and 10 months later. You know, don't make it a news cycle. So it's the responsibility of the media. You know, on this roundtable, we should have a representative from the media. We need to have a representative from the government institution who is responsible for looking at the film as art and who was supposed to give funding.
No.
You know, to the you are assuming that they are not going to do their job. We hope that there's someone who actually does it, right? They're supposed to do their job. That's what some of these corporations are for.
It's the IMB ministry, it's not culture ministry.
Whoever it is, whichever ministry. And we need to have a representative of the general public who's busy scrolling on Instagram to ask them what they feel about independent cinema, instead of us assuming, you know, what they want or what they need.
Yeah.
So this is my take on it in general.
Shaunak, tell us about the doc ecosystem, right? Because, I mean, theatrical release now seems like just impossible. I think the last theatrical release was An Insignificant Man in 2016. Your film was bought by HBO, went on Geo Cinema for a week.
Yeah, but then it was also available on Hotstar for a bit and then back to Geo and so on. So it's been available. Sorry, but do you want to finish the question?
No, just how is that ecosystem dealing with the distribution problem?
Right. So, I mean, that's a whole different regime altogether, and often far more impoverished in terms of resources, right? Now, the thing is that what happened is that about 6 to 7 years ago, docs started doing very well in festivals outside. In fact, I would say that this year's Cannes was a watershed moment, and all the other fiction films that have done well, save a few, are actually on this table, literally. So, docs started doing exceedingly well in the last 5 or 6 years, especially in the tiny festival niche. Unlike a lot of the fiction counterparts, the correlation between festival success and being seen was unfortunately very minimal often. That obviously has to do, one, with sensitivities of various kinds. They could be political, social, whatever, right? So very often it could be incendiary enough for it to, not be widely seen, which is another discussion altogether. Having said that, I think what's happened is that the transition from documentary as journalism to documentary as cinema is only making incipient inaugural steps now, because now slowly people who are getting interested in saying this can also be fun in the sense of cinephilia, in the sense of loving cinema, not just as information or not just as exposition in the sense of talking heads. So that is moving slowly, and obviously, like for instance, Payal's earlier film, which is an excellent film and straddles that kind of a midway space
Night
between
of Knowing Nothing.
A Night of Knowing Nothing. That, plays with that kind of a vocabulary, and like some of us also try to expand that very niche idea of documentary, and that started changing. I mean, to be honest, Ganimat hai ki I was on OTT at all. Like, remember that we've come from a background where my first film, Cities of Sleep, had less resources than this shoot. It's like, we didn't have 6 cameras, right? So we're talking about levels and levels, and when I started all that, you're already starting from a point of utmost impossibility and a kind of radical lack of, like, where do you think a film about birds in Delhi and one particular family would go? So the fact that it did all the things that it did and was widely available on first Hotstar, then Geo, and is still available, and was actually seen, for me, of course, from my limited vantage point, seems great. Having said that, when one zooms out and takes cognizance of other doc cultures, you see that it's embarrassingly minimal, right? And the simplest thing to do is you don't even need big systemic changes. You need, for instance, various cities in different countries have theaters that play both art house films, and so say a film forum in New York, or very many theaters that we know of, right? And they seem to always be full whenever I'm going. So you don't even need to do some major regime shift. It's literally one theater and really limited avenues where people who are clearly interested. And I was just, to Chaitanya's point, I recently heard this staggering stat that apparently bookshops in Europe are doing better business than ever, and that feels entirely counterintuitive, right? And obviously we have a kind of a confirmation bias of this zeitgeist to say bookshops are dying, art films are dying, and there is clearly some, like, the number of like for instance Vinay Shukla's film on Ravish, the kind of viewership it's gotten on Telegram, on just, pirated WhatsApp, it's staggering.
While we watched. Yeah.
While we watch. And
Yes.
we can't at all turn a blind eye to that, right? So I think there was a big kind of a change in the doc circuit, primarily for 2 reasons. One is that there are no funds very few funds in India that one can look at, far and few. So you're looking at foreign co-productions or grants or private equity abroad. That sort of created a small flutter and changed, and that has slowly made its own extremely exclusive, small, and obviously privileged biosphere of films that are now. So actually outside there is far more excitement about Indian docs than I see in the market here. Slightly there is a slight shift, but there's definitely more funding than there was when I made my first film, but one can only be at best cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, that's the theme for this roundtable is cautious
Cautious
optimism.
optimism.
But let's talk about streamers a little bit, because I think when they did come in, there was this hope, which I also remember when multiplexes came in, of like there would be a brave new world, right? Vic, you worked so much with streamers, making films, making series. What is your sense of why that didn't pan out? Though it changed the landscape for directors, writers, actors, especially women. So in that sense, a lot of really good things have happened. But we're not still seeing, a lot of like really signature, intimate, difficult cinema there.
Because cinema is not their focus. Their focus is, when it comes to the streamers, their focus is actually series. Because a returning series, a successful season 1 brings you more numbers and subscribers through season 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. And that's what they would like to sort of focus on. So that's why if you see any of the, in the last, since whenever streamers have been here, all the strides that have been made as far as writing jobs, acting jobs, have all been in the series world. They've not been in the movie world. You can literally count on your hand the number of great movies that have actually been in the streaming service as original films, as not licensed, as licensed films. Because it's a business at the end of the day. Unfortunately, because we're my reasoning is that because they're all in a phase of growth, they all want more subscribers. That's what they're chasing right now. If you look at how any of the streamers, Netflix operates in the US, for example, that there is a certain amount that's put aside, a certain amount of budget that is there for the indie films. David Fincher is making stuff pretty much only for Netflix right now. Or if you look at Alfonso Cuarón making Roma, many filmmakers have gone and made stuff for the streamers, for Netflix, for movies. Movies actually picked up a bunch of films, including recently Substance and While We Watched. While We Watched, yeah. But that's not the case for local cinema over here. It's not happening now. Whether that's because they're not putting that money aside for it, or whether they feel the algorithm's not supporting the fact that people are watching it, I don't know what the answer to that is, and I don't know honestly what the solution to that is also.
So, there's this wonderful character, Chaitanya, in your film, a very fascinating, beguiling character who we hear but never see right, in The Disciple. And she's, of course, this legendary singer, and she hasn't left behind, they're bootleg tapes of her speaking, and Sharad, the disciple, is actually listening to her while he's driving, and at one point she says, "Learn to be lonely and hungry." Is that also true for indie filmmakers? You all have to learn to be lonely and hungry.
I mean, if not this table, there can be. Because honestly, what you have on this table are the fairy tale, exceptions.
Successes, yes.
Let's be honest about that and humble about that. And I feel very lucky that my films, kind of survived the difficulties and the obstacles, and I'm sure everyone would kind of have that gratitude here. But I don't necessarily agree with everything that's said on those tapes, but it can pretty much be the case for any artist, I think around the world. And again, especially in the times that we are living in, which I said is full of a lot of other noise, and it also comes down to where is the patronage coming from, where are there institutional funds, is there support? Like cinema is seen as a medium that there is so much of it happening in India that it doesn't need patronage. That is one of the big problems which you wouldn't have with, say, Kathak or painting or any other art form. But I don't know what others have to say about lonely and hungry.
Not for me personally, not today. Yeah, I mean, it's like, yes, I was there maybe 10, 15 years ago. Yeah.
So again, it's level. Again, he spoke about levels, right? Everyone has a certain different level of it. We are having this conversation in Bombay, so everything seems different. We'll talk about grants and streamers and all of it. But 90 to 95% of all the South industries is borrowed money. It's borrowed from bank, borrowed from loan sharks, like your house is in debt. And that's the case with the A list producers. It's the big names that you hear of are borrowed debt. So that ecosystem is kind of dead in Bombay. Nobody expects that you have to put your own money or put your own stake in this space. That financier is kind of dead and gone. I don't see that happening so much. And struggle is struggle, definitely. And because mainstream has seen some more success, it's just money comes slightly faster. If you're able to crack a model, India is one thing. That's something that I've understood, that once you see scale, it just multiplies like crazy.
Yeah.
And this happened to regional films coming to Bombay. Earlier, they'd never even picked up our phone calls. They didn't know who we were. They didn't know which city we were from. And then now everyone's landed up in those cities. So I'm saying it changes very, very fast.
Yeah.
It's just that how do you crack the right model in the country? Like Payal's film just released in France, and I just was shocked at the numbers that it's making there. I said, can we hit 20% of this? Can we hit, in terms of admissions, they had some 200k admissions and stuff like that. Now,
That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's so great.
so for me, I was like, I know there are those 220k people in India. I just don't know where they are. And they don't have an ecosystem to come by cinema like this. So I think that's really what model we're trying to figure out, that there is something in between there. We just have to find it.
Which is what we thought, right? That was supposed to be the streamers. That was supposed to be the fact that there's a democracy to the fact that these films are going to be out there to see. But it's not. It's actually the opposite of that, weirdly enough. I find it's actually more democratic in a way to actually go to the movie theater. Because it's easily available. You know, you can go to your closest theater to you to watch it. If you don't know, somewhere or the other, it's the Nolan kind of idea of making a film. I'm not going to say when a film's going to come on streaming. You have to go to the theater to watch it. And I think that's always, it's purist, yes, but at least before the streamers came in, that was, you had to go, I had to go and see Court in the movie theater. I had to go see what I wanted to in the movie theater because I didn't know if I'd ever get a chance to see that film again. There's something very beautiful about that, which is not true today. The fact that while we watched, I mean, piracy is actually more democratic than actually streaming. I mean, and all my stuff's actually been pirated to death, and I know it. I'm happy about it.
But that's how we watched films.
Exactly.
That's
That's how we all watched.
cinema.
We've all watched more cinema like that. So that's what I'm saying. It's that
Movie
weird
to say
dichotomy.
वो भी तो कला है.
You keep thinking, nahi, abhi now it's officially available, so we'll do it, but you don't for some reason.
So my films got pirated before they came out in the theater, and they were and the distributors were like, आधे लोगों ने देख ली वैसे भी. I'm like, yeah, so don't pirate my films, please.
But you know,
Sorry.
do you know?
No.
There is loneliness and there is loneliness. In that, of course, there is, you know, loneliness is tremendously degrading. You feel like you don't have the financial and emotional cardio to carry on. Every single indie film, and especially the doc filmmakers, that are, you know, you really have to soldier on by pulling into inner recesses that are hard to come by. So it's of course awful, but at the same time, remember what happens is that it's also, in a weird, almost perverse way, freeing. And so the fact that a lot of indie films end up, the good indie films end up being either really good genre revisionism, or it takes on a kind of a classical cinema sense, which I think most people here on this table also deploy. And what why I think there is a shift of late in the last 4-5 years is that, you know, he mentioned that let's just agree that there is a crisis in cinema. And it's not like mainstream cinema is immune to it by any stretch, right? It's only the big, that's, you know, everybody's talking about it. And in a way, what happens is that in this kind of a moment where there's real fractures and a crisis moment, it's really the small film that comes out of nowhere and does really well, and you're marveling at the sheer inventive talent of this filmmaker that you didn't, makes people fall in love with films again. So in a way, the invigoration of a located film culture happens through this kind of films, and that only happened in a space where, like the streamers before this were never relevant for me. You know, I was not legible to them. You know, so and that obviously creates a kind of space where you then go, well, the only thing that I can hope for then is getting into a festival, or I get a grant. You know, that's the only thing that's available, which allows you to chart a course of just making the film that you really want to see.
Yeah.
And that, all of which is to say, opens up something which I think is more relevant and more germane than ever to today's film culture.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would like to add one more thing to this, which is a struggle for independent filmmakers. The festival circuit is no less harsh than the box office system.
In what way?
The pressure to be selected by an A-list festival for an independent film is unimaginable. It's immense pressure. And then to win an award. Like, why are we only talking about films that have, you know, gone to Cannes, Venice, Sundance? There are so many other films that are being made. But and then you are also relying on the biases and the programming choices of the festival curators, of the juries that are invited. So it is, you know, it's not such a necessarily merit-based path. I mean, I hope
Absolutely.
you understand
I
that, right?
completely
What I'm
agree with
saying.
you.
Yeah. So
And you live and die on the hill of
Exactly.
festival emails. Like all of us,
Exactly.
I'm sure, have just like refreshing your
Exactly.
inbox to see when that email comes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the West, there are systems in place that independent filmmakers get support at every stage. It's not like suddenly you wake up and then we know about a filmmaker because uski film aayi or wo festival mein gayi, and then suddenly you realize that okay, this filmmaker exists. But there are like labs, there are places you can take your script to, and I think that even all festivals have this as well. So in India, we have so many film festivals. We have so many places like Hollywood Reporter as well, and so many magazines. And there could definitely be a way that if we really want to see independent cinema thrive, and if the government is not doing it, then we have enough, I think, resources. We have enough minds, and we have enough intellectual support that people don't feel lonely. That young people coming out of film schools or being assistants, they have somewhere to go with their script. They have somebody to just talk to, and that would be nice.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
It's a baby
during the
steps,
time of Village Rockstars, I didn't feel lonely.
Really?
Now slowly I'm feeling more lonely. you know.
Why?
Because there is that noises, right? Because of that, I mean, too many things happening, and sometimes you feel you are not visible. How much you can try. But interestingly, there are people who are working even in Mami. Whoever watching, I can see last week at least more than 200 people they are posting, especially on Insta. At least if everyone take responsibilities, that it's not as a filmmaker, I mean, my duty. If everyone they think that okay, it is our small contribution can help. I think.
Absolutely. No, guys, let's find solutions.
No, perfect. So I was just hoping that I have a notebook and I can just keep writing this.
No, because it's so important. It's so important that this cinema thrive and that we don't have these. And for a while, well, I guess it was because parallel cinema eventually just kind of died a death. But that we don't have these divisions. And
I mean, it died a death because the funding.
because
is
the
gone.
funding ran out. Exactly.
And
exactly.
Doordarshan used to buy films at a good rate before, so people
Yeah.
had some money.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
there's no kind of standardization that a film of this budget should be sold for this much fixed. There should be standardization. It's just free for all.
Yeah, yeah. But, Payal, we were very quick, when I say we, I mean India was very quick to own your victory and congratulate you. But the truth is very little money came from here,
I mean, we
right?
got a tax rebate.
Right. But most of it was France, Italy,
Government of
Luxembourg.
Maharashtra?
No, from government of India has a treaty
Oh, yeah.
with any foreign
Oh, right.
country.
Interesting.
That's what makes co-productions attractive for people.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about finding money from abroad. Rima, your film has money out of Singapore, correct?
Yeah, this time
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah, it does. And
Yes.
you have Alfonso Cuarón on your next film.
Yeah, but he's asking me to find money in India. Yeah, it doesn't make things easier because again, what happens is, and this is what I faced with The Disciple as well. I had Cuarón as an executive producer, and we kind of knocked on all doors international. But once the film is Indian, the main market for it becomes India, and therefore. And if it's a non-English film, if it's a film with no stars, then it's just you are kind of on your own, because people are much more eager to buy, companies are eager to buy films that are already made and that have already done well. They tell you straight up, like, go to a festival, win an award, and then we'll talk about it. Or you prove your box office might, with your previous films in your country. So we also kind of stuck with that nationality, like if it's an Indian film, it's for the Indian market is the general idea. So I don't think it's that easy beyond a certain budget to raise money from outside
abroad?
of India. Yeah.
Payal, what was your experience?
About raising funding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a long path, and you have to find because the funding path is complicated because there are lots of rules of how you can spend that money. And if you want to shoot a film, for example, in Mumbai, it's going to cost some amount of money. So you have to make sure that you can find a kind of a scope production structure where you have enough to be able to shoot. So all this maths takes some time and more to raise the funding. But it is a way, and it's a way that I benefited from a lot. And although it took time, it was one that supported me throughout, from the very first page that I wrote till the film was finally made and distributed. I also got a distribution grant to support the film. So I think I really love the system. But I can see that it also has a lot of problems, and accessibility to such a system depends on a lot of privilege, which we have to acknowledge. And it's not easy for everybody to access it, which is why I feel the more and more of these structures we have in our own country, where people can write applications in their own languages, then I think it would make it more equitable.
Yeah, yeah. Rima, for you, how did you find money out of Singapore?
I was in Busan last year with I was at co-production market with a new film called Maloti My Love. So then I met him. So we are doing that film together, and when I finished a rough cut, I sent it to him. So he loved the film. Then he, just post-production a bit. Then he also funded the film. Yes.
Is that a way for younger filmmakers? Is that, one sort of route, given that there is no institutional funding, there's such a paucity of any sort of infrastructure? Do we just look for foreign funds, or Chaitanya, you're saying there's nothing out there?
Look, Vivek is Singaporean, my producer. He's put his own money. So
I was just going to say, I think the guy is
Singaporean.
Gomber is the institutional funding there.
Yeah, so my money is technically coming from Singapore.
I love that.
No, I'm saying that, what happens is I'm making my third film, the budget is also higher than my other two films. So I'm saying that there's maybe a certain cap which you can raise, but beyond that you need to try to raise money from India, and why not? It's such a big country with so much money.
Yes.
All I'm saying is we need the patrons. We just need, patrons who believe in art for the sake of art, and the power of cinema to generate empathy and cause a shift in perception and society. That's what we need more than anything
We
else.
have so many aspiring filmmakers.
Yeah.
The way he said, we are fortunate. So many people keep writing to me. Even in Mami also, they are just coming to me, how you raised the fund, how you did it. It's heartbreaking, because I know, okay, there are certain funds there, but to get it also, they have 10,000, 2,000, 3,000 minimum applications.
Yeah.
To get that fund also, she knows it's not easy.
Yeah.
No, it's either institution. I mean, it's either like how Payal and Shaunak have done it, where there's a certain amount of foreign money that's kind of coming, and or it's like how me and Chaitanya done it, where you've basically got a really rich person to go and back your first film, and then you're like, you're off to the races after that.
Yeah.
There is no in between here. There is no, especially for the indie sort of stuff. The studios are, once upon a time they were, but which studios are even left to even worry about indie funding? So that doesn't exist. There are some baby steps being taken as far as incubation of scripts are concerned. The SWA actually has a program. Writers Inc. has a program. You can submit to them. I've been mentors on a couple of them multiple times. Again, baby steps. Those are like, I can say there's 2 or 3, as opposed to around the world. There's so many of them. True. There's so many places where you have valuable feedback. You have mentors that can take a script, make it better over a period of time, and then connect you to grants and funding. Here, there's nothing. There's none of that sort of stuff. So literally is, for an indie filmmaker, that's literally the only 2 ways to sort of like do it. And Natesh Hegde, for example, is supported by Rishabh Shetty, who supports him, gives him money to make his film. But those films are very, very efficiently made in villages. Those budgets would never work if you wanted to make that same film in Bombay.
Yeah.
No chance. So big gaps everywhere.
Yeah. But Rana, you had talked about private players coming in. What is your vision for that?
See, I feel like a lot of problem also comes, we've been talking about the rest of the world and India, right? Most of the world has one industry that they work from.
Yeah.
If in America it's one place, in France it's one place, in Spain it's one place. Here we are 20 places, first of all. We are 20 different industries. Everyone has a certain way of functioning. A larger group assumes Bombay is the first place to go, but we didn't even know about Bombay till many years of our lives. So I think somewhere independent cinema requires that one chain to come along now. What is your one industry? What is the Indian entertainment industry? Where is it placed? Who are the players? Now you talk about I&B ministry, they'll be based out of Delhi. They're not even based out of Bombay. Now, where is cinema happening? Like there's no connect to cinema in the cinema towns. There is no way the cinema towns are connected either. It's only some successful commercial films that have, and a few 5-6 players that kind of understood how to get to different places. Right? So I think it's first, what is that united band? Like I'm saying, this is the first time I sat with a group of people and I'm just listening. Because everyone has a very different journey, right? And how do you crack that in which space? Again, a city like Bombay, everything is very expensive. Like a regular commercial film that we make here is 3 times the cost of Hyderabad. And every time we're trying to run back there and make it. We just spoke about Pedro and Rishabh Shetty. Like Rishabh shoots most of his films in Kiradi, in Kundapur. So like a room rent is 500 rupees there that day when I went and slept. So I'm saying that doesn't happen anywhere else, right? So the cost is just what you see on screen. Now, the other parts of it really don't matter in that scheme. I think, I don't know if government grants will ever be a thing in India for art, right? I just feel like we're a much more poor country. There's a lot more that the government has agendas to do. And it's also, again, statewide grants. Everything is different. So, is this a Marathi film? Like, if you take this for an Indian side, is it a Hindi film or a Malayalam film? Is it? Like, everybody will start fighting amongst many more crazier things. And I just feel like art is the only thing that unites. And if we find that one space for it, and it really will take a group of 20-30 filmmakers like themselves, producers, all of them coming together and sharing knowledge in one place. So I think that sharing knowledge, once that happens, money will start trickling, the way you distribute it will start trickling. Like I remember my father told me once when we were talking actually about All We Imagine and said, this is the film that's there. He said, can you block one theatre in each city that only plays this cinema and plays it for a week? We did that exercise actually in Kerala. We said, okay, it's limited, available for 1 week. And in 2 minutes, the theatre was full. So which means if I say it's there only for a week, which means it's people, or what is the right way to do it? So I think we're just still, that's the journey that we are. I think if every exhibitor gives out one main cinema that will play this independent films across every weekend, 365 days a year. So at least in each city, you know that audience that wants to watch that film. Right now, I think somewhere, why is money not being able to come? Because we don't know where that money comes back from. Like, we don't know where the audience is. So I think finding that right audience in India is first where we need to search.
We need more people like him.
Yes.
That is
Yeah, can I just say, this is a
yes,
crossover
that is what we need.
nobody could have thunk of.
Exactly.
Like, I remember reading the news report and I couldn't believe it. These are such disparate parts of a spectrum. And it's It's incredible. It's really like a magical thing.
But I think this is what has to happen.
Yeah, this is a way.
You know, this is the way.
That intention and that purpose should be there. Then it is sorted. I think, yes,
you know, you
possible.
leverage different strengths.
For sure, that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's when this will move, and you know, hopefully we will not be talking about being lonely and hungry.
But you know, while you were talking, I was thinking about it, like this distributors having access to films and exhibitors understanding things. Like even a festival like Mami, which is a festival, of course, very nice that all the audiences can come. But even if there were distributors from different states who came to festivals, saw Rima's film and said that, look, I can maybe distribute this film in Maharashtra because I have a network and it, you know, and then they could buy the film at a festival. Like it happens with all big festivals around the world, films get sold like that. We could have like a mini Europe.
There's no distributor that I saw at Mami.
Yeah, there should be distributors coming and
no
seeing films and seeing what a lot of
There are no
great response
distributors.
her film had.
There are no
And
distributors anymore.
like they should be tempted, like they should be coming and
Remember
saying, please.
We won a call in the pandemic. I remember if you were there, where we had a chat with UFO people.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And that was a potential solution to our distribution provider. I'd never know what happened to that.
No.
But again, it comes back to what I was saying, like the muscle of the collectivism of like everybody to come together and saying me. So that we have tons of theaters in this country, but a lot of them are just like sitting empty as single screens because, especially for indie films, now I don't know that law still exists, but there was a law that if you go over 850 screens, you get 2% less of the share of collections from exhibition. So a lot of indie films would not cross the 850 barrier. And that 850 number would then say, okay, if this is the kind of film, tum to niche film banate ho. So you should then go into Bombay, Delhi, Pune, Bangalore, Calcutta, and stay within this kind of zone. So you don't cross that 850 number. But when you cross that number, you actually get access to a whole bunch of single screen theaters that for 20 weeks of the year, they have material, right? Your 5 tentpole days or 6 tentpole days of the year, they have material. But for the 30 weeks of the year, they're sitting empty. They have nothing running in there. And we can't access them because of this 2% nonsense. And we got on a call, we spoke about it, we said, how do we level? He says, it's not that the people out there don't want to watch indie films or cinema, it's over there. It's like they just don't know how to. They don't have no access to it. But the block is from our own people. It's from the own studios and distributors who are trying to sort of save this kind of stuff. But if there is a collective where one can actually sort of like go and discuss, but eventually I remember that in that conversation it came down to, who's going to fund it? And then everybody's like, I don't know.
You have 100, you can go everywhere. What's wrong?
So guys.
No, but what I love about this conversation is it actually feels like single screen cinema is more independent and democratic than anything else that's available in India. That's pretty phenomenal actually.
But it is. It is, Rana.
It truly is.
Yeah. And that's such a wonderful thing. And I'm hoping that, essentially I'm guessing what we need then is the sort of indie Bahubali. Which means?
What would that look like?
I don't
Effect.
in terms of effect.
Of.
Because what that film did was it changed all notions of who watches what and who's a star and who's not a star and, all of that. So I'm saying just in terms of impact, what we need is one film to do that. And everybody stops thinking of, but this is a festival film, this is a this is, these labels that we've just created.
See, like in the pandemic, I was actually very curious, right? All of us were doing nothing. We were just wondering who's watching what. There were a group of people that never watched South Indian films who were in Bombay, South Bombay kind of. They don't even watch Hindi films, forget like South Indian films. They started calling me about Malayalam films in some nature. And I said, how do you know this movie? And for them, it's like a part of the country they've never seen. They've never seen or experienced it. And for them, it was some slice of culture that they got. Now I said, okay, now that's the other end of the spectrum where that's the people with a lot of money who like this cinema, but they don't even assume that this cinema is there to view. They will watch some French film that's come across on some other player. But I think so it is there. There is an audience out there. It's just that just directing ourselves to them, finding screens that are closer to them. I think that's really where it all will shake.
Can I also make another controversial point? Let's not assume all independent films are good.
Not at all.
I have now seen so many bad art house films, and I go and I'm amazed by the selection of these festivals also. I'm like, you are killing art house cinema because this cinema has stopped evolving, the kind of film that I'm talking about. They are boring as hell, right? There's no imagination, there's no idea. And yeah, if I'm a lay person and I watch one festival film,
then it's over.
It's representing the entire circuit, the entire ecosystem. And if it's bad, I'm never going to come and watch. So my point is the responsibility is also on filmmakers, on independent. Just because you're an independent filmmaker doesn't mean you need to make a dreary, boring film. Like you need to also evolve and be in touch with where the world is headed and kind of try to bridge that gap in terms of communication. Otherwise, we will, keep being siloed if you are also stuck in a bubble. So there is that responsibility on the creators as well. Of course, we are talking about distribution and audiences and getting them together and the attention economy. But there is also a problem on a creative front that I am talking about films worldwide, not just in India, because even the festival ecosystem, it keeps perpetuating the same kind of films and they keep expecting a certain kind of narrative from certain regions and things like that. There is some amount of racism also that you see in that. So that needs to change as well, and filmmakers make better films, please.
But let's just caveat that with, it's like let's not perpetuate the stereotype of the festival film. Because very often what people shit on as a festival film is not a film that I often see at festivals. So the fact that it's like a 3-hour long really is very often actually a minority of, if anything, which is not to say that festivals have washed out all their sins. We all hate a lot of the festival films. But the truth is that I have often dragged friends along who don't want to see any of that cinema and say, "Ye to achhi hai yaar." Right? And it's a process of discovery, and it's a process of genre discovery, because so much of fun genre stuff happens in festivals also. But I feel like there are scales of problems. What you're saying is absolutely correct, that of course festivals need some kind of, a certain kind of programming recheck and all of that. But having said that, that's only a tiny subset of a bigger prejudice that I think clearly underwrites a lot of our expectations of festivals, which is festival film hogi to bori, in a way that it's almost like a
but
prejudice.
that's exactly
right?
what I'm saying. I want to be surprised. I want my spirits to be lifted. I mean, and which is what I'm talking about filmmakers as well.
Even also in India, it is actually easy to make movies. Now there are people in like 50,000 also people making a film. So when they are seeing other filmmakers doing well, whatever the reasons, and they are passionate also to make movies, they are just they are making it.
Yeah.
But still, we can. We know, at least she knows the good cinema in the country available, which are the good cinemas. Identifying them and building a system, ecosystem will help probably.
But tell me this, do filmmakers talk to each other? Is there a sort of connectivity, or are you mostly working in your own sort of silos? Yeah.
I think in docs it's a slightly different thing, because in docs when you begin, it's like a Jenga tower of fragility, where initially you're
That's outstanding.
It's like you're a professional grant writer and not a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Right? Initially you're just doing rationale, synopsis, long synopsis. You're just doing that, right? And for months you're just waiting for a tiny sputter of fund to come so that you can take 3 steps aage, then wait again. And that becomes your kind of life cycle. Now the only solace you have during this time is your friends who are saying, iska deadline extend ho gaya. It's that. So it's a very busy, at least for me, it was a very busy ecosystem of filmmakers who were using each other's cameras, etc. And also, these are people who have to band together because information is completely like a black box. It's completely inscrutable and opaque. You don't know what this unicorn world of grants and foreign co-production and private equity is. And you have 3.5 people who know it. And those 3.5 will go. So I think there's a kind of...
They share it though?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Or for just to also signpost things that are good, that are changing now. For instance, places like Doc Edge in Calcutta, which is a really great documentary pitching forum, or different pitching forums where it's like a speed dating service where you go and you in 7 minutes say, my project is this, blah, 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 and you have a range of broadcasting commissioners or private equity people or foreign co-pro people who are there. And that's how one sort of slowly learns the ropes. And these are just very fledgling initial kind of steps. There is a lot of sharing, but of course somebody watching this would say, but you are city boys, there are various levels of exclusionary logics at play there. Of course it is much too sparse and tragically tiny and siloed and all of that. And of course it's elitist, but from my personal experience, of course, there's always WhatsApp groups buzzing with stuff. Now that I'm stepping into fiction, initially, I don't know what the camaraderie is now anymore. Or it's either that I haven't forged those links, or I don't know, it feels like it's sparser now.
Yeah. Vic, is there camaraderie in fiction?
Yes, there is. Of course there is. Yes. Look, I've been very... I've been very lucky in that sort of sense that the camaraderie's been there from the time. I've been an assistant director since I was 20, and then you sort of build up those relationships with your collaborators, your cinematographer, production designer, and then a bunch of filmmakers. Most of them kind of through the Anurag kind of like grapevine, which has been. So a lot of us are close. A lot of us will share scripts with each other. We will show each other cuts to be able to kind of understand. It is a very. It's not. I can't really speak for the filmmakers here because I think they are far more independent than I'm actually a bit of an I've been in the industry in that sort of sense. I think for a lot more, I've never had to sort of go out and try and get a grant for a film. It's always been within. I mean, I had my own company for a while and got very lucky with that. And even now, I think I kind of get away with doing indie type films within a system just because I can cast certain people and they get excited about, sort of like doing that. So yeah, again, I think before this I was like shitting on the streamers, but it's not true. I mean, I've done my last 4 things have been with streamers. Have been very good to me, and I've really got away with murder when it comes to the kind of subjects I do. I don't think anybody else would. So I've been lucky with that. But like I'm saying, it's just like I'm an industry baby in the sense that, not nepotistic, but I've been there for so long that I just feel like I'm a part of it. And it's when it is a wonderful place, it's a really wonderful place. And there's a lot of great people you can rely on. There's a lot of great people you can get feedback from or get notes from, who will help,
Make things happen.
Make things happen, make the calls for you, open up doors for you. And you tend to do that kind of like sort of like downwards as well. So yeah. But I'm probably the only one.
Well, is there a way for filmmakers to sort of mindfully create a camaraderie? I don't know. Does that world exist? I don't know, some gigantic WhatsApp group where you share things with each other, and I don't know. Is that a possibility?
I mean, I have fortunately the little extra support because of FTI and that network.
Yes.
And I was also in Sophia, so I have the SCM network, which is a very large network of women. So because of that, we have a lot of exchange. When I was doing non-fiction also, that network was really great for me. And with FTI, I think because all of us are going with this grant way, many of us, we are always like saying, Acha, is this contract looking right to you? How should I do this? Is this treatment good? I mean, we are always sharing. And but yeah, that's because of institution, that thing is there from that support. So it's hard for me to say how it would be outside of that. But I've been lucky to have that, and been have
With
great
me, I've
great
been
friends.
quite lonely. My journey. Yeah. It's probably you can help me.
But genuinely, guys, to have all of you on this table, just the talent that you all bring to the table is just so enormous that, as I said before, I'm very hopeful because you're all too good. Genuinely. And so I'm going to end with one question that I want all of you to answer. Chaitanya, let's start with you. What gives you hope?
What gives me hope is the fact that, more random things have happened in history. I have seen really undeserving people do really well in life, and I've seen really, unexpected goodness come out of this world. So why not? Why not for us and for this table and for independent cinema? I mean, truly, there's always a scope for miracles, and it's upon us it's our duty to kind of use the tools that we now have in this new world, this post-pandemic world, to use them to our advantage, and have that creativity. I mean, to be a cynic is also having a lack of imagination, and it's kind of a resignation coming out of lack of creativity, right? So why not? I mean, weirder things have happened. So
I love that. Rima, what gives you hope?
Love gives me hope. Just people and how, see, where I am now, where we are now, when I look at the people who are not here, in our position, that gives me, still they are so much in their heart and soul, to do something, to watch our films. So that gives me hope. And the untold stories everywhere, if it's coming from, if you see marginalized communities or people, like if this Village Rockstars 2 you watch, the people, so many kind of talent in our country, and they have so much hope. They have nothing actually, literally, but so much hope. So,
Rana?
See, one is I always believe that cinema that's made like this independently will outlast time in some ways, where it'll always be relevant for a much longer period of time than the quick turners that come on a Friday and leave 4 weeks after. So I just feel like every day I have to get up, get to work, and we'll figure out a way to do this. I just have to meet more and more people like this, and we'll find a way. That's the hope.
Absolutely. You will. More power to you.
Thank you.
Vic?
It's the movies at the end of the day. I think it's just the stories, and it's the diversity of movies that one has seen in the last, so every time you feel like, oh my God, it's just like horrible, and then you see Payal's film, you see Shaunak's film, you see Rima's film, but then you also see the successes of Manjumal Boys, you see the successes of a Brahma Yugam and Lapata Ladies, and chalo, it's like there's hope. So there's hope on both sides. There's hope on the fact that we're telling amazing stories that can be watched by a global audience and by everybody else, which are interesting and experimental and wonderful and beautiful. But there's also the fact that there can be successes which can then go in, and that's all the individuality of the filmmakers, and that hope lies in just those stories and the movies.
Yeah. Payal?
I totally agree with that, and I think that diversity in kinds of films, whether it's mainstream films, it's art house films, it's a film made for 50,000 rupees, or it's a TikTok reel, or it's an Instagram story. Those are films too, and people are doing incredible work, making
Reels are
documentaries,
really good,
blogs of their life.
actually.
Yeah, I follow so many of them, which are like really like they are like documentary films. And they're so wonderful to see. So I think that we need to open up about like what is cinema is actually really diverse, and this gives accessibility to people who so far have been denied that accessibility, and people are grabbing it and making what we call content. But for me, they can also be very cinematic, and that's so nice.
Just need to go out of our comfort zone, I think. In that bubble, okay, this is cinema I'm making, it's done. No, I mean, a little going ahead can help probably.
Yeah. And Shaunak, your, what was it, Jenga tower of fragility?
So I think past failures give me hope, in the sense that when you know that this would have been a dream, like a bizarre dream some years ago. So you feel like you have a Teflon coating in knowing that you're consciously aware that what's happening right now is batshit nuts, right? And to hold on to that awareness. And also I think the failure of formulaic things. That sounds grotesquely hateful, but go for it. I mean, the failure of things that everybody considers will be a success means that something is, like some cracks are showing, right? And that obviously, in the long durée of time is a good thing. So I think that.
Yeah. It has been wonderful to hang here with you, and I really hope that Payal, your film goes all the way. Rana, you keep finding solutions.
We will.
We will do this together. You find lots of money. You also find lots of money, Rima, and you as well, Shaunak. Thank you all, and just keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As Dory said in Finding Nemo, just keep swimming. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Payal.
This is Rana, Daggubati.
My name is Shaunak.
This is Chaitanya Tamhane.
I'm Rima Das.
This is Vikramaditya Motwane. Please
Subscribe
To the Hollywood Report.
India.